You are surrounded by people who confidently don't know what they don't know, and it is slowly draining you of everything you have. Here is what nobody tells you. Your intelligence is not your superpower in these moments. It is your greatest liability. The world conditions you to believe that reason is the answer, that if you just explain things clearly enough, people will come around. Philosophers, self-help gurus, corporate trainers, they all sing the same song. Find common ground. Use logic. Educate the ignorant. But one philosopher saw through that illusion 2 centuries ago. Arthur Schopenhauer looked at human nature without flinching and wrote down what he found. His conclusion was brutal. Logic is completely defenseless against willful stupidity. Reason has no currency with someone who was never shopping for truth in the first place. You already know this feeling. You are in a meeting at a dinner table or deep in some online argument. Someone is speaking with iron confidence about something they fundamentally misunderstand. Your brain immediately sees the error. You organize your thoughts. You build a clean, logical case. You present it with patience and precision. They blink, and then they repeat themselves louder. You walk away depleted, not because they outsmarted you, but because you wasted a perfectly engineered argument on an audience that was never capable of receiving it. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect, the phenomenon where the least competent people in any room carry the most unshakable confidence. But understanding the label does not protect you from the damage. Here is a mechanism nobody explains. Ignorance is not passive. It is not a quiet gap in someone's knowledge waiting to be filled. It is an active, armored defense system. When you walk toward a fool with logic, they do not see an invitation to learn. They experience it as a direct threat to their identity. And the human ego will burn down civilization before it admits it was wrong. Daniel Kahneman mapped this in his research on fast and slow thinking. Most people live entirely inside fast, emotional, instinctive thought. You, operating from a place of careful analysis, are speaking a language they are neurologically unprepared to process. It is not stubbornness. It is a hardware limitation. And no amount of better explaining changes the hardware. The deeper problem is the energy equation. You burn enormous mental fuel constructing the perfect argument. They burn nothing simply refusing to accept it. They do not need to defeat you. They just need to outlast you. And they will every single time because they have nothing to lose and you have everything to lose. This is a trap. And most intelligent people never escape it because they keep believing the next conversation will be different. It will not be, but there is a way out. And it looks nothing like what you expect. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part they never taught you in any classroom. So if logic fails, if reason is a trap, if explaining yourself only feeds a cycle, what do you actually do? You stop fighting them. You start using their own momentum against them. Schopenhauer spent decades watching how arguments actually work between unequal minds. He noticed something that most people miss entirely. When you argue with someone committed to being wrong, you are not just failing to convince them. You are actively giving them exactly what they want. Friction, resistance, the feeling that their ideas are significant enough to provoke a reaction from someone sharper than them. Your frustration is their reward. Your counterargument is their validation. Every time you push back, you are telling them silently, your position is worthy of my time and my energy. You are elevating their nonsense to the level of a legitimate debate. You are the one making them feel important. Schopenhauer's sharpest strategy worked differently. Instead of opposing the fool's argument, he agreed with it. Completely, aggressively, he pushed their logic forward at full speed until it crashed into its own absurdity. Philosophers call this reductio ad absurdum. In plain terms, it means handing someone enough rope to tie themselves up. Here is how it works in practice. Imagine someone insisting loudly that modern art is worthless, that any random person could walk in off the street and produce a masterpiece. The intelligent person's instinct is to argue about technique, about art history, about the years of craft that go into what looks effortless. Resist that instinct entirely. Instead, lean forward, nod slowly. Say, you are absolutely right. This is actually incredible news. We should quit our jobs this afternoon, pick up some canvas and paint, and have work in a gallery by next Friday. We have been wasting our time here for years. Watch what happens to their face. You have not insulted them. You have validated everything they said, but you have also followed their logic to its destination. And suddenly they have to backpedal. They have to introduce the nuance and complexity they were just mocking. They have to argue against their own position to save themselves from looking ridiculous. You did not defeat them with a better argument. You handed them their own argument and watched it collapse under its own weight. This approach requires something that does not come naturally to intelligent people. You have to kill the part of you that wants to be recognized as correct. That hunger for acknowledgement is the real trap. Needing a fool to validate your thinking is, as Schopenhauer would put it, the ultimate intellectual self-betrayal. Let them believe they won the exchange. The moment you stop needing their acknowledgement, you become completely unreachable. But what do you do when avoiding the argument is not an option? When you are forced to sit across from someone and cannot simply walk away? That is where it gets interesting. Not every fool can be avoided. Some of them are embedded in your life in ways you cannot simply remove. They are your manager, your client, a family member, someone whose cooperation you need to function. You cannot ghost them. You cannot always redirect the conversation. You have to show up, sit across from them, and somehow walk away intact. This is where Schopenhauer's porcupine dilemma becomes essential. He described it this way. On a freezing winter night, a group of porcupines huddles together for warmth, but their quills tear into each other, so they pull apart and freeze. Then the cold drives them back together again, back and forth, stuck between pain and survival. Intelligent people face the same dilemma, with the difficult minds around them. Too close and you get hurt. Too distant, and you become isolated and ineffective. The solution is not distance. It is a different kind of presence. When you are forced into interaction with someone who drains your energy, you do not bring your real self to the conversation. You send a representative, a professional, composed, carefully constructed avatar that operates on the surface of the exchange while your actual mind stays safely behind the glass. The avatar is agreeable. The avatar uses phrases like, "That is an interesting angle," and "I can see where you're coming from," and "You might be onto something there." The avatar gives them nothing to grab onto, nothing to challenge, nothing to escalate. It is a smooth, frictionless surface, and friction is the only thing that fuels them. Meanwhile, your real thinking is happening somewhere else entirely. You are observing the interaction with clinical detachment. You are watching the cognitive patterns play out in real time. You are gathering information, assessing the situation, and protecting your mental resources for something that actually deserves them. Here is where most people feel resistance. It feels dishonest. It feels manipulative. Society has spent years telling you that authenticity is always the answer, that you owe every person in your life your genuine self. That guilt is exactly why you have been suffering. You do not hand a surgeon's tools to someone who has no training and call it generosity. Sharing your authentic intellectual engagement with someone who will use it against you is not openness. It is recklessness. Your mind is a resource. It has limits, and every resource requires boundaries around its use. There's also something more urgent at stake here. Sustained exposure to highly irrational thinking does not just exhaust you. Research on cognitive load shows it actually degrades your own decision-making over time. The mental bandwidth spent predicting unpredictable behavior, managing emotional reactions, and suppressing frustration quietly erodes the sharpness you depend on. Stupidity at high enough doses is genuinely contagious. The quarantine is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. But what happens when the fool is not just in your life, but in a position of power over it? That changes everything. There's a specific kind of danger that only emerges when someone with low judgment acquires high authority. It is not the danger of incompetence alone. Incompetence is manageable. The real danger is what happens inside the psyche of someone who knows, at some wordless level, that they are outmatched by the people beneath them. They cannot articulate this feeling. They do not process it consciously. But on a primal level, they sense the gap, and rather than responding to it with curiosity or humility, they respond to it with threat detection. Every person around them who is visibly sharper becomes an enemy to neutralize, not a resource to utilize. Schopenhauer wrote about this with unusual sharpness. He observed that displaying outstanding capability in the presence of mediocre authority is not just unhelpful, it is dangerous. The mediocre mind does not respond to excellence with admiration. It responds with a quiet, burning resentment that will find ways to express itself through the system it controls. They will not attack your ideas directly. They will attack your character. They will call you difficult. They will say you are not collaborative. They will use every procedural mechanism available to quietly make your life harder. You cannot win by being visibly right in their presence. The arena is tilted. The rules are designed by someone who already decided the outcome. History offers a masterclass in navigating this exact trap. Sima Yi was considered one of the most gifted strategic minds of the Three Kingdoms era. He served beneath Chao Shuang, a regent with enormous power and catastrophically poor judgment. Chao Shuang was threatened by Sima Yi's reputation. If Sima Yi demonstrated his capability openly, it was a death sentence. The game could not be won by playing it directly. So Sima Yi did not play it directly. He pretended to be dying. When Chao Shuang's spies arrived to assess him, they found a frail, confused old man who could not hold a bowl steady and could barely remember names. They reported back that Sima Yi was finished. Chao Shuang relaxed. His guard came down completely. The moment Chao Shuang left the capital on a hunting trip, Sima Yi ended the performance. He moved with total precision, executed a swift coup, and took control of the empire. Chao Shuang never saw it coming because he had been given exactly what his ego needed. The feeling of superiority. This is the submission gambit. And it requires something that feels almost physically painful for intelligent people. Voluntarily letting someone smaller than you feel bigger than you. Ask them for advice on something minor. Let them correct you on a detail that does not matter. Thank them with visible sincerity. You are not diminishing yourself. You are anesthetizing them. You are keeping their egos sedated while your actual work continues uninterrupted. Your intelligence is not a trophy. It is a concealed instrument. The most dangerous players never show their hand until the moment it is decisive. Now we need to talk about what this is actually costing you and why you keep going back anyway. Here is the part nobody wants to hear. You already know some of this. You have been aware, on some level, that engaging with certain people costs you more than it gives you. You have felt the energy drain. You have noticed how a single circular conversation can ruin the quality of your thinking for the rest of the day. You have promised yourself you would stop taking the bait, and then you took the bait again. Why? The obvious answer is that you want to be right. That is true, but it is incomplete. Underneath the desire to be right is something more uncomfortable. You feel responsible for them. You believe that if you explain it one more time, if you find the exact right framing, something will shift. Some light will turn on. You are holding on to the idea that your effort can change them. Schopenhauer considered this belief, as kind as it feels, a form of arrogance. The assumption that you can rewrite someone's cognitive architecture through patience and repetition is not humility. It is a quiet refusal to accept reality as it actually is. It places you in an impossible role that guarantees exhaustion. Kruger and Dunning's landmark research revealed why this effort is structurally futile. The cognitive skills required to identify a mistake are the same skills required to recognize that you made one. People who lack competence in a given area also lack the metacognitive ability to perceive that lack. They are not pretending. They genuinely cannot see the gap. The walls of their certainty are not a performance. They are load-bearing architecture, protecting a fragile internal structure. You cannot dismantle someone's psychological foundation through logic. You will only be buried under the rubble when it comes down. And the longer you keep trying, the more it costs you in ways that go beyond a single bad conversation. Cognitive load research is clear. Sustained interaction with highly irrational people degrades the quality of your own thinking over time. You become reactive. Your patience shortens. Your creativity narrows. You stop taking risks because you are permanently in a defensive posture. The energy that should be building your life is being spent managing someone else's chaos. Look honestly at your history with the difficult people in your life, the ones you have been trying to reach for years. Have they moved? Have they grown? Or have you simply grown more tired? Schopenhauer's position on human nature was not pessimistic. It was precise. He believed that character at its core is fixed. People do not change their nature. They change their circumstances. The fool you are trying to save today will be the same fool next year, wearing a different situation like a new coat. Accepting this is not giving up on people. It is giving up on the illusion that your energy is the missing ingredient in their transformation. Once you fully release that illusion, something unexpected happens. And it is not what most people think. You stop fighting it, something strange happens. Not relief, exactly. Not immediately. The first thing you feel when you genuinely stop trying to change minds that were never going to change is a quiet, unsettling emptiness. Because if you are honest with yourself, the debates had a function. They made you feel sharp. They gave you a stage. Being the most rational voice in a chaotic room is its own kind of identity. And identities, even exhausting ones, are hard to release. Schopenhauer warned about this specifically. He observed that intelligent people often gravitate toward lesser minds not in spite of the friction, but because of it. The contrast makes them feel significant. Surrounding yourself with people you can easily outthink is comfortable. It is also a slow form of intellectual decay. The mind becomes what it practices, and if it practices low-level combat, it loses the capacity for high-level construction. The shift that becomes available once you stop engaging is not emotional distance. It is dimensional. You stop being a participant in the noise and become an observer of it. You begin watching the patterns rather than reacting to them. You see the Dunning-Kruger dynamic playing out in real time, and instead of frustration, you feel something closer to clinical clarity. The behavior becomes predictable, and predictable systems can be navigated. This is a transition from intelligence to genuine power. Intelligence is knowing the right answer. Power is achieving the right outcome while letting someone else believe they made the decision. Intelligence wins the argument. Power makes the argument irrelevant. When you understand that most people are driven by ego, not evidence, you stop fighting their ego and start working with it. You give them the small validations they crave. You let them hold the surface of the conversation while you shape what actually happens underneath it. You construct the parameters within which their choices occur, and every option they see was put there by you. This is not manipulation in the corrosive sense. It is architecture. It is a recognition that the world runs on emotion and social currency, not logic, and deciding to work with that reality instead of raging against it. The truly unshakable mind is not the loudest one in the room. It is the quietest. It is the one that has stopped needing the room to validate it. It is the one that knows that being understood by everyone is not a goal worth pursuing, that clarity of purpose matters far more than consensus. Your energy is not renewable on demand. Every hour spent in low-return conflict is an hour that does not go toward building something that lasts. Guard that time with the same intensity you would guard anything genuinely valuable, because it is the most valuable thing you have. The fool will always be there. The noise will always be there. The question is whether you will be standing in it or standing above it. That choice, and everything that follows from it, is entirely yours. If this resonated, the real question is what you do with it next, because knowing is only the beginning.